I have a serious question for you, and I want you to really, really picture this scenario in your mind.
Okay, I'm ready.
Why do millions of people, normal, law-abiding citizens, decide to dress up like criminals or monsters or even fruit once a year?
Fruit is a popular choice.
It is. And then
Right.
they walk up to a complete stranger's house, they knock on the door, and they demand sugar.
When you phrase it like that, it does sound a bit concerning.
It sounds incredibly suspicious. Think about it. If you did that in, say, July, someone would absolutely call the police. You'd be arrested.
Without a doubt.
But somehow, this strange behavior is actually one of the most popular traditions in the Western world.
It is fascinating. And what's so interesting is that while it feels like just a bit of fun today, a reason to eat chocolate behind the candy and the costumes, there is a 2,000-year-old history.
2,000 years.
Yeah, we are talking about spirits, ancient festivals, and believe it or not, turnips.
Turnips. Okay, we are definitely going to get to the turnips. That is a promise. But first, welcome to Hello English.
Yes, welcome.
If you are listening to this, you are probably looking to improve your English listening skills, build your vocabulary, and maybe understand Western culture a little bit better.
And we want to help with that.
But here's the thing. We don't believe in boring lectures.
No lectures. The goal here is to learn through listening. We want this to feel like a conversation you might overhear in a coffee shop.
Or a conversation between two friends trying to solve a mystery, the mystery of the sugar-demanding bananas.
Exactly.
So grab a coffee or tea, or honestly, since we are talking about this specific topic, maybe grab some candy, get comfortable, and let's explore the history of Halloween.
It is a great topic because it really does bridge history, language, and modern culture perfectly.
So let's get right into it. We have to start with the most basic question possible. What actually is Halloween?
It's a great starting point.
Yeah, if someone landed from Mars tomorrow and saw all these people running around in masks, how would you explain it to them?
Well, to put it simply, and let's go slowly here to really catch the details. Halloween is a holiday celebrated on October 31st.
October 31st, the very last day of the month.
Right. And I want to pause right there on that word, October, because it's a calendar word we use all the time, but it often gets mispronounced.
Oh, that's a good point. It looks simple enough on paper. October.
It does, but a lot of learners struggle with where to put the emphasis, the stress. Notice where it is. It is not October.
No.
And it is not October. It is October.
Ah, so the power, the weight of the word is right there in the middle.
Exactly. It's that middle syllable. October. Try saying it.
October. Yeah, I can feel it. It sort of goes up and then comes back down. October.
That's a perfect way to describe it. It's the turning point of the word, which makes sense because it's kind of the turning point of the season, from autumn into winter.
That's a good way to remember it. The turning point of the season. Okay, so on October 31st, what happens? What does this holiday actually look like to an outsider?
Well, if you walk through a neighborhood in, say, the U.S. or the U.K. on that day, you see very specific things, very specific symbols.
Okay, like what?
You see pumpkins sitting on porches. You see decorations of ghosts and witches and skeletons hanging from trees. And, of course, the most important activity. People dress up.
They dress up. And this brings us to our first major vocabulary point of this deep dive. We need to talk about the word costume.
Yes, costume. A very important word for this topic.
Now, looking at our source material here, we have a very clear definition. A costume is defined as special clothes you wear to look like someone or something else.
Exactly. It's all about transformation, isn't it? You aren't being yourself, you are pretending to be something else.
Right. And the source gives some great examples. You could be a vampire, you could be a superhero.
The classics.
Or, and this is my personal favorite example from the text, you could be a banana.
A banana.
It's a classic choice. I have to say, if I'm choosing between being a scary vampire or a giant yellow fruit, I think I'm choosing the banana. It keeps the mood light,
It certainly does. It's absurd, which is a big part of the fun. But, this word costume is actually a bit of a trap for a lot of English learners.
It is. How so?
Well, it sounds very, very similar to another English word, and they get mixed up constantly.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this. You're talking about customs, right?
Exactly. Costumes versus customs. They look almost the same written down.
Just one letter different. One is an O and one is a U.
But the meaning is completely different. As we said, costumes are the fun clothes you wear. But customs, Customs refers to the traditions or habits of a society.
Okay, can we give an example of a custom just to make it super clear?
Sure. A great example is shaking hands when you meet someone.
Mm.
That's a common custom in many Western countries.
Right. Or in Japan, bowing is a custom.
Perfect example. Taking your shoes off before entering a house in many parts of Asia is a custom. Wearing a banana suit,
Hmm.
that is a costume.
That is a very, very important distinction. We definitely don't want to say, in my country, it is a costume to shake hands.
No, that would be very confusing. People would wonder what you're wearing on your hands.
Mhm.
A special glove, maybe?
So, just to lock this in for everyone listening, we wear costumes, not customs.
Right, you would say, that is a scary costume. Or, where did you buy your costume?
Or in my case, why are you wearing a banana costume?
Exactly. And just to really hammer this home, a good way to remember it is, think of custom as being close to the word customer. It's about how society behaves. Costume is about a disguise.
I like that. Custom is society, costume is disguise. Okay, so we know what it looks like. We know the date, October 31st. But here is where it gets really interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, and I'll admit I sometimes fall into this trap, assume that Halloween is an American thing, like
Yeah.
it was invented in Hollywood to sell candy.
That is a very common assumption. And it's understandable because we see it in American movies and TV shows so often, right?
All the time.
But if we look at the history, it's actually a myth. Halloween did not start in America.
It didn't.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
It started in Europe, specifically in Ireland and Scotland.
Ireland and Scotland. So this is not a modern invention at all.
Far from it. This brings us to a really powerful vocabulary word that we need to understand for this story. Ancient.
Ancient. I love this word. It feels heavy, you know? It has weight.
It is heavy. When we say something is ancient, we don't just mean it's old like your shoes are old or even like your grandfather is old. We mean it is very, very old.
Like from a long, long time ago in history.
Exactly. Like the pyramids in Egypt.
Pyramids are ancient. The Roman Colosseum is ancient.
Perfect examples.
Yeah.
And this festival, the origin of Halloween, is ancient.
So we could say this festival is ancient. It's a way of saying it has deep, deep roots.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the specific ancient festival that Halloween comes from is called Samhain.
Okay, I'm looking at the notes here, and I have to be honest with you. I'm looking at the spelling of this word, and it is terrifying. Samhain.
It looks difficult, doesn't it? It looks like a password you'd forget immediately.
My brain wants to read that as Sam Hain. Or maybe Sam Hain.
And that is exactly what most learners, and even many native speakers who don't know the history, would say. It's a logical guess based on English spelling rules.
But it's wrong.
Completely wrong. This is a Celtic word. It comes from the old Celtic languages of Ireland, like Irish, Gaelic. And in those languages, the pronunciation is totally different from the spelling.
This is a great lesson for English learners in general. The spelling can lie to you.
It often does.
So how do we actually say it? It is pronounced S-A-H-win.
S-A-H-win.
Yes.
The first part is like the sow in sow a seed, but without the W-H-A-T-H. And the end is just win. S-A-H-win.
Wow. Okay. That is a massive difference. The M and the H just sort of disappear or change completely. What's happening there?
That's right. In the Gaelic language, that specific combination often creates a W or V sound. It's one of those rules you just have to know.
It's a great reminder for anyone learning a language. You have to trust your ears more than your eyes sometimes.
That is perfectly said. Listen first.
So we have this festival, Samhain, S-A-H-win, happening in ancient Ireland and Scotland. When are we talking about? How far back does this go?
We are going back over 2,000 years.
2,000 years. That is definitely ancient.
It is. This was happening long before many of the countries we know today even existed.
But I have to ask the logical question here. Why is it scary? Most big holidays are happy. Thanksgiving is about eating turkey and being grateful. Christmas is about presents and family. Why do we associate this day with ghosts and monsters and skeletons?
It's a great question, and it all comes down to the belief system of those ancient Celtic people. They believed that on the night of Samhain, something very specific and very strange happened to the world.
Okay.
They believed the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead became thin.
Okay, let's unpack that word boundary. That's a good one for our listeners, the very useful word.
It is. A boundary is like a line. It's a border that separates two things. Walls are boundaries.
Yeah.
Fences are boundaries.
Right. Even the lines on a road are boundaries that separate the lanes of traffic.
Perfect example. So in this belief, there's normally a strong, thick boundary between our world, the world of living people, and the world of the dead.
Right. Usually they are separate. You're here or you're there.
But on this one night, the night of Samhain, that boundary gets weak. It gets thin, like a piece of paper you could almost see through.
Oh, I like that imagery. It's
Yeah.
like a door opening just a tiny crack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because that boundary is thin, people believe that spirits could cross over.
Spirits. Okay, another key vocabulary word.
A spirit is essentially a ghost or a supernatural being, the soul of a person who has died.
So the idea is on this one night, the ghosts can come back to Earth.
Exactly. And here is the catch, T. Some of those spirits might be your ancestors, which is nice. You might want to say hello to your great-grandmother's spirit.
That sounds lovely, a family reunion.
But some of them might be bad spirits, evil spirits,
Yeah.
or just mischievous ones who want to cause trouble.
Okay. Now the scary costumes are starting to make more sense. But wait, explain the logic to me. If I'm afraid of a ghost, why would I dress up like a ghost? Wouldn't I want to, hide under my bed?
Well, that's the brilliant part. Dressing up was the hiding. It was a strategy of disguise.
A strategy, not just for fun.
Not at all. Think about it from their perspective. If you walk outside on the night of Samhain and you look like a normal human, fresh and alive, the bad spirits might see you and decide to bother you or attack you.
Okay, that's a scary thought.
But if you dress up in a costume, if you cover your face with a mask and wear strange clothes to look like a spirit,
Oh, they think I'm one of them.
exactly, you blend in. The logic is, if I look weird and scary, the real ghosts and spirits will think I'm just another spirit, and they won't bother me.
That is actually pretty brilliant. It's camouflage, like an animal hiding in the forest.
It is. It's social camouflage to protect yourself from the supernatural. And this leads us to a really useful phrasal verb, scare away.
Scare away.
Right. To scare away means to make something leave because it is afraid. You aren't just scaring them, you're scaring them away. The away part shows direction. They leave.
So a scarecrow in a field is meant to scare away the birds.
Perfect. And in this case, the original costumes were meant to scare away the evil spirits.
Or at least to confuse them so they leave you alone. But the intention is protection.
The intention is pure protection.
I love that. It completely changes how you see a Halloween costume. It's not about getting candy originally. It was about survival.
Pure survival. If you didn't dress up, you were considered vulnerable on that night.
Speaking of things we see on Halloween, we have to talk about the biggest, most famous symbol of the holiday. You cannot have Halloween without this big orange vegetable sitting on your front step.
The pumpkin.
The pumpkin. And again, let's do a quick pronunciation check here, because this is another word that gets people a little tangled up.
It is. It looks like it should have two clear P sounds. Pumpkin. P-U-M-P.
Right. Pumpkin.
It does. But in natural spoken English, we almost never pronounce that second P sound clearly. We say it really fast.
Yeah.
It becomes P-U-M.
P-U-M-kin. Yeah, the second P is almost silent. It just gets absorbed.
Exactly. It's not pumpkin, just P-U-M-kin.
Okay. P-U-M-kin. So we put these P-U-M-kins outside our houses, but we don't just put them there whole as they are. We do something to them.
We do. We turn them into something called a jack-o'-lantern.
Right. And to do that, we have to use a sharp knife and cut into it. What is the verb for this action?
The word is carve.
Carve. C-A-R-V-E.
To carve means to cut shapes into something, usually with a knife and often for decoration. So we carve a face into the pumpkin.
I want everyone listening to visualize that. Taking the knife, cutting out two triangle eyes, cutting out a scary mouth, that action is carving.
Exactly. We carve turkey on Thanksgiving, some people carve wood for art, and we carve pumpkins on Halloween.
But here is a fact that might surprise you. I mentioned earlier that this whole tradition started in Ireland and Scotland.
Yes, over 2,000 years ago.
Well, did they have pumpkins in ancient Ireland?
That's a very good question. I actually don't think they did. Were pumpkins native to Europe?
No, that's the thing. Pumpkins are native to North America. So originally, the jack-o'-lantern was not made from a pumpkin.
Okay, so what did they use? What was the original vegetable they were carving? It was made from a turnip.
A turnip.
A turnip.
Wait, hold on. Turnips are those small, hard, white and purple root vegetables, right?
Yes, they are incredibly hard and dense. Not easy to work with.
That is significantly less cute than a big orange pumpkin.
It is much more terrifying, actually. If you look at pictures of traditional Irish turnip lanterns, they look shriveled and gnarled and really scary. They look like little shrunken heads.
Oh my gosh, that sounds absolutely nightmare-inducing. So how did we switch from these scary little turnips to big, friendly orange pumpkins?
Well, it comes back to immigration. When large numbers of Irish immigrants moved to America, especially in the 1800s and 1900s, they brought their traditions, their customs with them.
Including the custom of carving lanterns on Samhain.
Exactly. But in America, they couldn't find turnips as easily. Or perhaps they just realized something much better was available. They found pumpkins.
And pumpkins are huge in comparison.
They're huge, they're mostly hollow inside, which makes them easy to clean out, and the flesh is much softer. They're so much easier to carve.
That makes total sense. It was a practical upgrade, so the tradition adapted to the new location.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how culture evolves. The idea remained the same, make a lantern to scare away spirits, but the object, the medium, changed to fit the new environment.
Okay, so we have the costumes to hide from ghosts. We have the pumpkins, which were formerly turnips, to scare away spirits. But what about the best part, the free candy?
The sugar, the main event for most kids.
The sugar. We call this tradition trick-or-treating, but why? Where does that phrase come from?
This also has historical roots.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't just appear out of nowhere. It didn't start with candy bars and chocolate. In the past, specifically in medieval Europe, poor people would go door to door on a similar holiday,
Okay.
and they would ask for food. Usually they were given small cakes called soul cakes.
Soul cakes.
Yes. And in exchange for the food, they promised to do something for the family that gave it to them. They promised to pray for the family's dead relatives.
Oh, wow. So it was a transaction, a piece of cake in exchange for a prayer for your grandmother's soul.
Yes, it was often called souling. It was a very serious religious exchange.
That is very different from today. Today, kids just want chocolate. There isn't much praying involved.
Very true. But the basic structure of going door to door and asking for something remained. And the phrase trick or treat actually preserves a bit of that old exchange, but with a modern, more mischievous twist.
Okay, let's break that phrase down for everyone. Trick or treat. It's such a famous phrase, but do we really know what it means?
Let's look at the two parts. Treat is the request. It means, give me a treat, give me candy, give me something good.
Right? Give me a treat. That's the nice part. The goal,
And trick, that is the threat.
a threat. That sounds serious.
Well, it's a playful threat. It means, if you don't give me a treat, I might play a trick on you.
So a trick is like a prank,
Yeah.
some mischief.
Exactly, a harmless prank. In the past, maybe kids would soap your windows or throw toilet paper in your trees.
So it's basically a tiny, adorable ultimatum delivered by a 5-year-old dressed as a dinosaur. Give me a Snickers bar or there will be consequences.
Essentially, yes. That is the core meaning of the phrase.
Do kids actually do the tricks, though? Is that still a thing?
Not really. In the modern tradition, it's mostly just a phrase we say. The trick part is rarely acted out anymore. It's just part of the fun of saying the phrase.
That's good. I don't want my windows soaped, thank you very much.
Me neither. But speaking of trick or treat, there is a very specific grammar point here that we absolutely need to fix.
Oh, yes. This is a super common mistake I hear all the time from learners.
Me too. Learners often try to describe this activity using the verb do. They say, children do trick-or-treating.
Do trick-or-treating. You know, that sounds logical because it is an action, an activity, but it's incorrect, isn't it?
It is incorrect. In English, when we talk about activities that involve movement like moving from place to place, we usually use the verb go, often with an ing form of the activity.
Can you give some other examples?
Of course, you don't do shopping, you go shopping. You don't do swimming, you go swimming.
Or go fishing, go hiking, go running.
All perfect examples. So following that pattern, the correct phrase is, children go trick-or-treating.
Right. So you'd say, last night we went trick-or-treating, not we did trick-or-treating.
Exactly. It's one of those small changes, but it makes your English sound so much more natural. It just flows better.
It really does. It's one of those little details that separates the advanced learners from the fluent speakers.
Absolutely.
You know, talking about costumes and trick-or-treating reminds me of a story. We wanted to share this to give you all a sense of natural narrative flow, and also just because it's a bit embarrassing for me.
I love embarrassing stories. Let's hear it. This is always the best part.
So this is from my own childhood. I remember one year, I decided to go with the classic option, the original. I wanted to be a spirit, a ghost.
A classic choice. Very traditional, going back to the roots of Samhain.
Very classic. Also very low budget. My costume was literally a white bedsheet with 2 holes cut out for the eyes.
Best kind. No sewing required. Simple and effective.
Well, maybe not the most effective, because I was walking up the steps to a neighbor's house to say trick or treat, and the sheet was too long for me. It was dragging on the ground.
Oh no. I can see where this is going.
I stepped on the front of the chute with my other foot, and I just went down, face first, right on their concrete porch in front of everyone. Oh, that is the worst. In front of the neighbors and all the other kids?
It was terrible. One moment I was a scary ghost, and the next I was just a sad pile of laundry. I didn't look like a scary spirit anymore. I just looked like a sad blanket on the ground.
A sad blanket. That is a great image. I can just picture it.
And the neighbors were so confused. They opened the door and just saw this white sheet on their porch. They didn't know if they should be scared or if they should offer to help me with my laundry.
Oh, that's a great story. And actually, even though it's funny and a little sad for you, it's a perfect way for us to review some of our new vocabulary.
How so?
Well, look at the words we can use to describe that situation. You were wearing...
A costume. A very cheap and apparently very dangerous costume.
Right, and you were trying to look like a spirit.
A spirit. A scary ghost. I was not successful.
Exactly. And honestly, falling down like that was a bit of a trick on yourself, wasn't it?
It definitely was a trick. No treats involved in that moment, just pain and embarrassment. See, when you put the words into a real story, they stick in your memory so much better. Context is everything for learning.
That is absolutely true. So let's do a quick formal recap. We have thrown a lot of words at you today. Let's see if we can cement them in your minds.
Okay, sounds good. I'll give the definition, you give the word.
I'm ready. And for everyone listening, try to say the word in your head before I say it out loud. See if you can beat me to the answer.
Okay, first one. Very, very old. From a long, long time ago in history.
Ancient.
Good. Next one. A ghost or a supernatural being.
Spirit.
Okay. Next. The special clothes you wear to look like someone or something else.
Costume. And remember the key point here. Not custom.
Correct. Very important distinction. Next, to cut a shape into something, like a pumpkin, using a knife.
Carve.
And finally, our phrasal verb. To make something leave because it is afraid.
Scare away.
Perfect. You got them all.
Now, I want to challenge everyone listening right now. Just take a second, pick one of those words, just one, and try to make a sentence with it in your head. It doesn't have to be complicated.
That's a great idea. Like I saw an ancient tree in the park.
Or, my Halloween costume is a banana.
We need to carve the pumpkin tonight.
That active usage, even just in your mind, is the best way to learn. Don't just listen. Try to create with the language.
So, bringing this all back to the present day, we know where it started, that ancient festival Samhain. We know about the turnips that became pumpkins. But what is Halloween like today?
Yeah, how has it changed?
Well, the biggest change is that it's global now. It's not just an Irish or an American thing anymore. You see Halloween parties in Japan and Brazil, all over Europe.
But is it the same everywhere? Do kids in Japan go trick-or-treating?
Not exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where traditions change over time. In many countries, trick-or-treating isn't really a thing. It's more about adults having costume parties.
Ah, so it's less about the candy from strangers aspect and more about the dressing up and socializing aspect.
Exactly. The focus shifts depending on the culture that adopts it. So Halloween today is really a mix. It's a combination of that ancient history, the ideas from Samhain, the spirits, and modern fun. Parties, candy, and just a reason to connect with people.
It's amazing how something that started as a serious way to avoid evil spirits has turned into a billion-dollar industry and a reason to party with your friends.
It really is. It shows how resilient these traditions are. They don't disappear, they change and adapt, but they stay alive.
Well, we have covered a lot of ground today, from ancient Celts to sad blanket costumes.
We have. And I just want to say to our listeners, if you understood the main points today, if you now know what Samhain is, if you can explain why people wear costumes and you know that pumpkins used to be turnips, you are doing a great job.
Absolutely. This was a deep dive into culture and language, and you kept up. And here's a tip. If you want to really master the pronunciation, especially for a word like Samhain or even pumpkin, listen to those sections of this deep dive again.
Repetition is your best friend in language learning. Don't ever be afraid to listen twice or even 3 times.
And remember, learning English doesn't need to be scary.
No, it doesn't. It should be fun.
Unless you happen to open your door on Halloween and see me standing there in my banana costume.
That would be genuinely terrifying. I'm not sure what I would do.
Truly terrifying. I think you'd just close the door.
Well, on that note, we hope you enjoyed this exploration of Halloween history.
Definitely check out the rest of the videos on our channel to keep building your skills. We have a lot more topics like this to explore together.
See you next episode.